this is Trey Pastor. Welcome to my review of Titans episode 9, Hank and Dawn. This this review will have spoilers in it, obviously, like my previous reviews. Okay, this is episode 9, which kind of takes us back to Hank and Dawn, well, who are Hawk and Dove, who we met in episode 2 when Dick brought Raven to their apartment to try to get her, to drop her off there to try to keep her safe. Okay, while he investigated the group that's after her. Okay, and if you saw that review, you know that she was at the end of the nuclear family assaulted them on the roof, and Dawn was thrown off the roof. And again, this episode begins where that left off, where she's in the hospital. She's like in a coma, and Hank is there, drinking, of course, in the hospital, waiting there, and we know he has substance abuse issues and pain issues, and you see him there waiting. And this episode is sort of a flashback in a ways to how they first met. And first we get a flashback of Hank and his brother Donnie when they were little kids, and Hank was a little star of the like junior football league and stuff, and you see them Hank running through tackles and being really successful. And what you notice, his coach is watching when Hank is running and scores a touchdown, and then he sees his little brother cheering for him in the stands, and he pays special attention to that. And then later we see a scene of Hank in the locker room getting dressed, and he's getting ready to go out, and then he sees the coach with his little brother. Okay, and he tells his coach is saying great game, and listen, I'm gonna show you a little, and his little brother saying, listen, the coach just wants to show me the weight room. And you can tell Hank is going in his mind. He can tell that the coach, because he has his hand on his brother's shoulder, that the coach has kind of bad intentions as far as his little brother's concerned. And he says, no, listen, we got to go home. We can't. I'm sorry. We got to go home. And the coach says, no, your brother told me already that your mother's working late and stuff. And he still tries to get out. He said, no, we got to go effing home. And, the coach kind of threatens him, saying, listen, for using profanity directed at a coach, I can get you expelled out of this this private school. I can get you and your brother expelled. You don't want that to happen, right? And then you see Hank, he actually makes the decision. He said, listen, okay, I'll go in the weight room. You got to go home. And he sends his brother home. So basically he sacrifices himself to be molested by this coach because he doesn't want it to happen to his little brother, which is like a real chilling moment that played out. And kudos to the young actors in that scene. That scene was just chilling to watch and hard to watch too when you see that happening, the way it plays out. He sacrificed because he knows, you can see the wheels turning in his head, that he knows that this coach is a creeper and is going to molest, and rather than it happen to his little brother, he volunteers and goes to the locker room with his coach so his brother doesn't get molested. That's kind of big brother he is. They love each other really good, and then they jump forward in time a little, like 10 years later, and then you see his brother's, his brother is watching the football game, watching his brother on TV, and he sees that his brother, scores a touchdown, but he kind of collapses, and he goes to check out his brother and see that if he's okay, and he talks to his brother, and his brother said, no, I'm okay. They're at a party, and his brother, but he said, no, I'm great. This is great. Hey, this is my little brother, and he's cheering. And then he's worried about him. Donnie's asking, are you okay? Because I saw you collapse after that touchdown. He said, I'm perfectly fine. And then you see him collapse again at the party, and then you see them in the nurse's office, and the nurse is telling him, listen, you had concussion, obviously, and you have any problem with bright lights and stuff, and she's advising him you may have to rest and sit up, and she even gives him the pills. She said, you can take these and maybe rest, but you're gonna keep pushing it. There could be dangerous consequences if you don't rest. And of course his brother, the next scene you see his brother rushing, Hank rushes to the library where his brother is Donnie is studying, and saying, listen, you told the coach, he put me on the bench. And he said, yeah, I told him because I was worried about you. They're arguing back and forth. They're getting pretty loud, and then some guy comes up to Hank to tell him, listen, this is a library, calm down. And Hank hits him, and then all of a sudden it's a brawl for all, and the two brothers are basically taking on everybody and knocking them out. And then the next scene we see them in the dean's office, and she's basically telling him, listen, Donnie, you've been a good student at this school, exceptional student, and you never got in trouble before. We can kind of bypass that with you. But Hank, there's cameras everywhere. We saw you start the fight. You threw the first punch. And then Donnie is like fed up with it. He said, listen, you might as well just kick us out, okay? Because, all this BS. My brother's sacrificed his body for the school, and you want to kick us, you want to suspend him, kick him out? Yeah. And he said, you just might as well kick us both out. And then you see them going home, and it appears that they both got kicked out. And you see them at home, and, they're talking about their mother, their mother who's died when she got sick, and then Donnie has an idea, and he looks on the computer online. He sees, looks on a site, and he sees that all these, sexual predators are grouped in their neighborhood, and they said, why are they all, Hank said, why is they all grouped in our neighborhood? He said, because people don't give a crap about our neighborhood because we're poor. That's why they put them all, in our neighborhood. But he said, hey, we can do something about it. And then that's when they get the idea of dressing up as Hawk and Don, in this Dove in this case. So and they actually catch one guy and get him to beat him and get him persuaded to turn himself in by beating the crap out of him. Okay, and so then they also switch back to Dawn and her mother. They show us that she's an expert dancer, ballet and stuff, and her mother, who's come to visit her from London, is talking to her in the restaurant they're eating, and her mother kind of brings up a painful subject that that she's going back to her husband, who we learned through their conversation that he's been an abuser, and the fact that Don basically broke his arm when he abused her mother one time. And she's telling her, listen, you don't have to go back, mother. You don't have to, stay with this abuser. And she's going that, mother's telling, oh, he's changed and all this, and, trying to, persuade her. But it's a painful, rough conversation, and Don is not having any of it. And then you see them walking down the street, they're talking, and they actually bump into Hank and his brother Don, and they the mother kind of tries to introduce the kind of pushed Hank towards Don, and Don can see that, and then all of a sudden there's a out of control truck, and it just runs in and smashes, and we find out later it hit the mother and Don, and they were killed. So of course, they don't really show you the funeral, but they just show the aftermath of there's a support group that they're going to, Hank and Don, they're going to a support group where they're supposed to express their feelings and stuff for people that have lost people. And of course, Hank is not having any of it. He passes on talking about it. Don doesn't talk at first about it at all either. And then you see him, she shows up at the bar where he's at, and, they sit there and talk and introduce each other and talk to each other a little bit. And then, they, just talk about the loss, and then she says, I'll see you next week. And then next week they're at the meeting, and he's not there. Hank's not there at all. And then you see Dawn there, and she actually finally opens up and she tells how she's mad that she has nobody to hate because it was just an accident. It wasn't nobody's real fault. So, she tells us, it's not fair that there's nobody that she can punish for this because, it was just a mindless accident. And so we know how she's thinking. And then she comes out, and you see Hank there waiting for her, and he invites her back to his place for, for a drink, and they hang out. And you see where, he's talking about his brother and telling how great a brother he was, and he actually opens up to her. He actually tells her that there was this coach, that basically molested me when I was a kid. And she asks, well, did you do anything about it? And he says, no, I rather, I didn't talk about it because then if I talk about it, that would make it real. And he said, my brother, Don, he said he knows his brother Don. He never spoke about it, but he knew that he had got molested. And I think that was part of the reason why they went after, child molesters, because he knew what happened to his big brother, how his big brother basically sacrificed himself to save him. So I think that's part of the reason why they need to go after these child molesters and stuff. And you see, that's a real bonding moment with them when they get close, and she tells him about her mother and stuff, and then he invites her to stay over, on the couch strictly. Yeah, and of course she slips on the couch, and then she gets up in the middle of the night, and she kind of goes through his yearbook, and she sees the coach. She actually Googles it, his name on the computer, and finds out where he lives, and she leaves. We think to go confront him, and then of course Hank wakes up in the middle of the night, and he goes around looking for her, and he looks on his computer, and then he sees that she pull up his address, and then we cut to her going to the coach's house, and basically telling him, admit what you did, admit what you did, And he's, what are you talking about? He said, get out of my house. And she, attacks him, and then he pulls out a gun on her and tells her to get out of here. And then Hank shows up, knocks the gun out of his hand, and starts beating the crap out of him. And then that's when Dawn says, okay, enough. But then she looks on the coach's computer, and then she sees more kids, that he's molested more kids. And she said, this guy is really, this is awful. This guy didn't just molest you, he molested a lot of kids. Okay. And then, you see Dawn, he tells her to go home. He tells her to leave. And, but she says, no, I'm going to stay. And then you see her close the door, and we just assume that he took care of the coach, if you know what I mean. Okay. And then they go back to his place, and that's when they have sex and they bond. And also, and that's how, she wakes up. Actually, there's one other thing I left out. There's a scene in the I think it's in his room, when he opens up the medicine cabinet, and you see Raven, calling his name, saying help, help, help. And then later, like I said, after the sex scene, you see her getting up from the, you see Dawn getting up from the bed, and she's walking. Then all of a sudden, she sees Rachel's image too, and I forgot what it was. If it was something that she sees Raven's reflection, saying, Dawn, help, 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 help. Okay, and then you see it cuts back to the hospital bed where she's in the coma, and she actually wakes up. Okay, she actually physically wakes up, and you see her. Hank is sleeping in the chair by her, and she wakes him up, and she tells him, listen, Hank, we gotta help, we gotta help Rachel, we gotta help Rachel, we gotta find Jason Todd. And he goes, who's Jason Todd? She says, I don't know, but we have to, help Rachel, we have to. And that's how it goes off. Okay, so this episode was really good because you got the, the backstory of, Hank and his brother Don, and, how he grew up, and basically, how, the fighting the injustices, that was the brother's idea of doing that. And, of course, then he met, Dawn, and after the tragedy that happened with his brother and her mother, that's how they bonded together to, to be vigilantes, to take on the oppressed and to help people. And it's good because you get to understand their characters and stuff, and you get to understand Dawn, and Dawn's a fighter. She doesn't take crap from most of it. You can see that with the backstory with her mother being abused, and her sticking up for her mother. And it's a good episode to show their backstory, so you can know the history of the characters. Okay, but the Raven part I'm kind of confused about. I'm just going to speculate about that Raven part. I'm thinking maybe the Raven part has to do with the last episode. Maybe she goes back in time to try to, although I don't know why she would go back in time to tell them that, because it seemed like it went back in the flashback that she showed up in their flashbacks. But maybe she did that so that way they would remember in the present. Okay, I don't know if that makes no sense, but that's my only guess. That's why she had the flashback, so she went back to their past so they could remember in the present. Okay, so, and it helped wake Dawn up. So, and the part about getting Jason Todd is that part I don't understand, the Jason Todd part, unless she wants Jason Todd to find out where Dick went. Although I don't know how she would, because Dick took out the tracer in his arm. But maybe the hint is Jason knows where they were going, so that they can get to them and help them. But anyway, let me know what you think of episode 9, Hank and Dawn. What do you think of it? Feel free to leave comments down below, and if you like this review, please hit the subscribe button down below. I have links to my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram in the description box, as well as a link to my other channel, Paul's Views and Opinions. Please check that out as well. And this is Trey Pastor saying so long and take care.